This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, listen closely. We're going to talk about the bread and butter of the Cleveland Browns. And here's one thing I've noticed when watching the Browns and other teams, and why I think the Browns are going to be a team that's going to be able to get through some of their woes that they're dealing with currently and be a successful team versus a team that we just played in Jacksonville that I think is going to struggle. See, the number one reason why I think and have a lot of faith in the Cleveland Browns to be successful this year is the Browns have an identity. When you think of the Cleveland Browns, there are some things that you think that they're going to be good at because they're the Cleveland Browns. That identity is defense. That identity is being able to run the ball. And the Browns can live up to that identity. Teams that have a real identity will always win more than teams that don't. See, a team like Jacksonville that's very talented. They got Trevor Lawrence, one of the most talented quarterbacks ever to enter the draft, or so I'm told. Or you got number one overall picks all over that defensive line. You got first round picks all over that defense. They're talented. They're a super talented team. But Jacksonville has no identity. Going into this game, Browns fans, especially the more casual Browns fans of us, had no idea how to prepare for the Jacksonville Jaguars because the Jacksonville Jaguars don't have an identity. They have Trevor Lawrence. They have Travis Etienne. They have a lot of first-round picks, a lot of talent. Talent that I think the Browns could use greatly. But the reason we're confident about the Browns' ability to use that talent greatly is because the Browns have an identity. See, that's what separates the Cleveland Browns from a lot of other teams. The Browns have an identity. They have a proven blueprint to win football games. That's what separates the Cleveland Browns from other Cleveland Browns teams that had success, right? I know we're all worried about a 2019 scenario or a 2021 scenario or a 2008 scenario where the Browns are good one year, they stink the next. But see, every year that happened, it was because the Browns didn't really have an identity to lean on. Outside of maybe 2021, which had more to do with your quarterback injury, plus other things piling on top of your quarterback that led to horrible play from Baker Mayfield. But most of the time, you just didn't have an identity. Even in 2021, the one that I give a little bit of exception for, you didn't really have an identity yet because that was only Kevin Stefanski's second year. The Browns have a true blue identity. This is not 08 where the Browns got good by like luck in 07 and then they're trying to replicate that success. This isn't 2018 or 2019 where we're really projecting on the Browns' second half season success and we're saying the Browns are going to be successful based on a less than 500 season the year before. And then we're also have a new head coach who has no identity. No, this Cleveland Browns team has an identity. They can run the football. They can play some great defense. Now, what happens other than that? Question marks. Quarterback play, question mark. Wide receiver play, question mark. Right? Tight end play without David Njoku, question mark. But you go into every game the Browns play hoping that they can run the ball and play defense because that's the identity of the Cleveland Browns. When we say Cleveland Browns football, it's not just a platitude. For so many years, so many different head coaches would come into this office in Berea and sit in the podium and talk about how we need to play Cleveland Browns football. We need to play brown and orange football. We need to play dog-bound football. Whatever version of that platitude they use, it was always a platitude, empty, meaningless, just some shit he's saying. Because Cleveland Browns football meant nothing. There was no identity to Cleveland Browns football. But now there is. When somebody says they're going to play Cleveland Browns football, we mean we're going to play good defense, we're going to get pressure, and we're going to run the ball. That is Cleveland Browns football. As much criticism as Kevin Stefanski gets for not running the ball, he's been in the top 5 in rushing attempts every year of his career. He's going to run the ball. He got in the top 5 rushing attempts last year. I believe he was top 3 in rushing attempts. And like Nick Chubb got hurt 5 quarters into the season, and the Browns' rushing game was absolute dookie duke for like the second half of the season. He still ran that ball. Why? That's the identity of the team. Now the Browns' rushing game is not, and I quote, dookie duke. So they can run the ball. Last week, over 100 yards, over 5 yards a carry. Didn't really see them get stuck behind the line of scrimmage because of the run game, much like in 2023. This run game's back. And by the way, I hear a lot of people being critical of the fact that we changed offensive line coaches. Now, again, it wasn't the Browns' choice. Bill Callahan wanted to coach with his son, and he left for Tennessee. And by the way, for everybody saying Bill Callahan would have fixed everything going on with the Browns' offensive line, and that every problem the Browns' offensive line has is because Brian Callahan or Bill Callahan is not here. Tell me how that Tennessee offensive line is doing right now. Are they doing great? Is that a great offensive line they got there in Tennessee? Are they playing above expectation in Tennessee? See, I think the Browns actually are doing well with their new offensive line coach, because the one thing Andy Dickerson was also brought in here to be was run game coordinator along with Deuce Staley. And I think those two have created a run game that's so much more successful than what the Browns were trying to do last year with Bill Callahan. I think this team is actually benefiting from the change in offensive line coach. I know a lot of people are blaming the holding and James Hudson's play on the old offensive line coach not being here, but let's be honest, this is how James Hudson plays. The holding stuff, that's more individual than it is about coaching. The coach can't stop you from holding somebody. That's not technique that they're learning. They're not learning to hold somebody in practice. But the things that are technique, the things that are kind of like rotate in that orbit of what an offensive line coach does, well, that stuff looks good. Jerome Ford, and shout out to Deuce Staley for this. Jerome Ford gets downhill way quicker than he did last year. I know everybody points at one run against Dallas, but he really has done a much better job of not only getting downhill, but staying active once he gets downhill and not just turning his head down and getting blind, like staying up, eyes active, and then finding little cut lanes within the middle of the field. I think he has been significantly improving. I want to see him run the football more. What we saw from Dante Foreman, pretty impressive. Was running really hard, right? Looks like an upgrade over what Kareem Hunt used to provide for this team, because he seems to be able to run with a little bit more juice than Kareem Hunt had. And I think if he gets, Jed or Jack Conklin back this week, you're really going to see him be able to explode in this run game. The Browns' blueprint to win football games is simple. Play great defense, run the ball, and then if it comes down to it in the fourth quarter, all right, Deshaun, make something happen. And we saw that recipe in play. Unfortunately, holding penalties got in the way, and the Browns got to do a better job not holding, no matter what the excuse is for it. They got to do a better job not holding in those situations. But we saw that formula in play, right? The Browns got a 3-and-out, got the ball back. Deshaun Watson gets that ball down in the fourth quarter. Well, not down in the fourth quarter, with the lead in the fourth quarter. And has a strong drive to get the Browns back in scoring range, makes multiple plays. That throw to Jerry Jeudy for 40 yards, magnificent. That throw to Jerry Jeudy while dodging like a million people in traffic, magnificent. The two best plays for Deshaun Watson in that game were in the fourth quarter. And look, it's not just an isolated incident. I've been critical of Deshaun Watson, but I keep it real when he plays well, and what he does when he plays well, I keep it real about that. Fourth quarter football, Deshaun's been good in the fourth quarter for the Cleveland Browns. Universally. Go look at his splits. He's been good in the fourth quarter. He's always been a fourth quarter guy, and most of the stuff that ends up in the highlight reel for Deshaun Watson has been in the fourth quarter. This game, last drive, the most pivotal drive of the game, Deshaun gave you his best stuff. The one time you're like, damn, this is not just better than last week. He almost looks like Deshaun Watson. Fourth quarter, last drive. There's something to that. And if that's what Deshaun Watson is, right, not somebody who's going to be able to play like he does in the fourth quarter, all 4 quarters, every game, but somebody's going to be serviceable in the first few quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, give you that effort. And if that's the baseline that you get out of Deshaun Watson with good defense and being able to run the ball, you're going to win a lot of games. We got to see if that's the baseline for Deshaun Watson first, right? Because he gave you one awful, awful game and one good game. Got to see more of a balance than that, right? Got to have him stack these good games on top of each other before I start saying it's the status quo. But if this is the status quo and we project that it's the status quo, then you can see how it's a very easy recipe for the Browns to win games. This is the formula for the Cleveland Browns. This is what I get excited about when I think about the team. Now, ultimately, what's going to be a part of their plan to go further than this is if Deshaun Watson is capable of carrying you in a game where you're going to have to win a shootout, if Deshaun Watson is capable of giving you multiple ways to win football games, because I've said it before and I'll say it again, winning and getting to a Super Bowl is about your ability to be versatile and flexible as a team and win multiple different ways. We know the Browns can win a football game if it's ugly. We know the Browns can win a football game if it becomes about defense. We know the Browns can win a football game if it becomes a ground game. We know the Browns can win that way. The one way in the Kevin Stefanski era we have not seen the Browns win is in a shootout. And they're going to get tested if they want to go to a Super Bowl or get to the playoffs or win a pivotal game down the stretch. They're going to have to win a shootout eventually. The question is, do they have it at quarterback to win a shootout? Do they have it at wide receiver to win a shootout? Those are questions that need to be answered. But if we're talking about the bread and butter of this Cleveland Browns team, the identity of the Cleveland Browns and what makes it so that you're secure in this Browns team's ability to win football games this season, it's that ability to play defense, which they've proven. 50% of the Jaguars' plays last night, well, not last night, but Sunday, were for 0 or less yards. This defense is great, especially when healthy. This defense is great. And that ability to run the football. And if we get more games like we got against Jacksonville where the Browns can run the football at a decent clip, if this defense continues to show up like they have against two of the highest paid quarterbacks in all of football, something to keep in mind too, right? People were worried, we're going to play better quarterbacks this year. The Browns have paid two quarterbacks that I have seen people make the argument. I'm not saying I think this, but I've seen people make the argument that Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback. The Browns made him look bad when it comes to EPA per play. It just didn't show itself because the Browns got whipped on the other side. But go look at his EPA. Go look at Dak Prescott's QBR for it. It wasn't great. It wasn't what you would think from a top 10 quarterback. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, people are calling Trevor Lawrence a bust after the performance that the Cleveland Browns put on him. It ain't Trevor Lawrence, just the Browns defense. Now the Browns are going up against another expensive quarterback. Now it's Daniel Jones. So I'd be disingenuous if I were to act like that was a franchise quarterback. He's not that good. I don't believe him to be good. But still, the Browns have gone up against two franchise quarterbacks at the very least. Two quarterbacks who are deemed pretty good by most of the league, and his defense is held up. Jacksonville was supposed to be a run stuffer. Browns were able to run on them pretty easy with backup offensive linemen. They're going to get healthier. Don't forget how important David Njoku is to this run game. They're going to get healthier. They're going to get David Njoku back. They're going to get healthier at running back. They're going to get Naheem Hines to add to this rotation. They're going to get Nick Chubb back to this rotation. The Browns can run the ball. The Browns can play defense. And we know that at the very least is going to win them games this year. Now, what could take them over the top? Quarterback play. Win those close games. Win some shootouts. If you're able to do that stuff that teams with good quarterbacks can do, then all of a sudden we're talking about something serious here. But we're a little far away from talking about that, right? Deshaun Watson's got to prove it a little bit more before we could talk like that. But we know the Browns' identity, and I think that's the most important thing. The Cleveland Browns have a real identity. It's been established for a couple of years now. That is what gives me a lot of security about how this team will perform in 2024 and why Kevin Stefanski and Drew Barry have put together a very worthy unit this year. That's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.